everybody, welcome to another battle report. This was a 4,500 point game of Sylvan Elves against my Dread Elves. This is against my friend Thomas. This is something of a rematch from our recent game. So I'm going to flash up the army lists for you in a moment, and you can pause and take a closer look if you like, and then we'll get straight into deployment. Okay, then here we are in deployment. We rolled battlefield number 4 and we got the deployment type encircle. So you can see that Thomas has got the advancing flanks here and I've got the advanced centre with the receding flanks, and the secondary objective was the spoils of war. So if you have a unit on top of one of these at the start of your turn, you can pick it up. So those are the 3 markers. So let's just go through the lists then. We'll start with Thomas's. He's got his big unit of Heath Riders here with his Chieftain BSB, and then his small unit of Heath Riders here, Sylvan Giant, Thicket Beasts, Dryads with the Dryad Ancient, that's his general there, another unit of Thicket Beasts, then he's got his Druid, Eagle King, Shamanism Wizard Master here, and 6 Kestrel Knights. On my side, a Medusa, Dark Raiders, another Medusa, pair of Hunting Chariots, 20 Dancers of Yema, 25 Blades of Narb with the Cult Priest on the Divine Altar, another Medusa, Raptor Chariot, unit of Corsairs, Dark Raiders, another Raptor Chariot, and the Dread Knights. You will probably notice that we both forgot to deploy my Oracle here, but that was obviously going in the Corsair unit because it's a bunker. You will also note that the Corsairs are facing away from the enemy, and that's because the Oracle has the Wandering Familiar. So I'm anticipating a totemic beast arriving here. Thomas has turn 1 by the time the Corsairs go down, so I've deployed them facing that way, knowing I can use my Wandering Familiar to cast anyway. So this is something of an experimental game. I'm trying this Dread Elf list for the first time. Thomas is likewise experimenting with multiple units, so our objective really is to find out what works and what doesn't, and what needs changing for these new army lists that we've written. But anyway, let's get into it. It's Thomas's movement up first. Okay, just before we get into that, quick Vanguards here. I've not felt I've done very well with my Vanguarders recently. They tend to get shot to pieces, so I've been quite cautious. I've just nudged this unit here to force Thomas to show me what he's going to do with his Vanguards, and he's decided to come up here. And then I've left these Dark Raiders where they were and elected not to Vanguard. I wondered about kind of coming up here, but I didn't feel there was very much they could do. They don't have any obvious targets, and I don't really fancy getting charged by this big unit of Kestrel Knights, although retrospectively that might have been a mistake because Thomas has got to position these quite carefully, as you'll see later, so I suppose he perhaps wouldn't have charged. Anyway, there you go, that's Vanguards. Okay, so Thomas's movement 1 here, then you can see the Kestrel Knights have been joined by the Shaman there, but the important thing here is that he's got his Swift Stride and his movement 9, so he's really harnessing his movement distance here to make it difficult for me to get any kind of charge off. I'm going to need 12s or maybe 11s on my Swift Stride to make these charges, but if I come forwards then I give away an easy charge with my units that both really need to get the charge. Over here, he's got his fast cavalry coming to harass mine, so I'm probably in a bit of trouble with my fast cav again there. And he's got his big unit here just threatening the flank. He has made a little bit of a mistake here. He's not placed himself on the secondary objective, so he can't pick it up. But yeah, that's just the way these things go, I suppose. Giant hanging out behind the impassable terrain, doesn't want to get charged by the Dancers of Yema with the great weapons, and just sort of general good practice here with Sylvan Elves advancing through the forest. It's just generally good play if you're a Sylvan Elf, so there you go. Right, that's the end of Thomas's movement 1. Okay, so end of Thomas's turn 1 here then. In the magic phase, he's got the totemic summon off and brought on a totemic beast. I did anticipate this. I saved all 5 of my dice for it, but he rolled a 21 on his dice roll out of a possible 24. 21 out of a possible 24 on his 4 dice, and my 5 dice weren't able to stop it, so that was frustrating. But he at least did fail his other spell attempts, so that's something. The totemic beast then killed 3 corsairs with its breath weapon, and his heath riders or heath hunters, not sure which they are here, killed 4 riders, causing a panic test here, which is why that dark raider is now kind of running off towards the hills at the moment. So there you go, that's the end of Thomas's turn 1. Okay, my movement 1 here then. So my chariots have got nothing to shoot at because the Sylvan Giant is hiding behind the impossible terrain, so I've turned them to face the totemic beast here. I want to get rid of that. Because the totemic beast has random movement, I can't reform my corsairs to face it, because then he could run straight into combat with my oracle, who has no saves of any kind. This has given me my first kind of feedback on my list. I think I need to give my corsairs hand bows, so that when totemic beasts and the like come on, I've got at least some kind of ranged answer to it. I've not given Thomas the easy charge that he's looking for over here, unless he decides to come at the Medusa, and then of course he will bounce off the impossible terrain, which would enable me to get the counter charge. So I'm trying to make things difficult for Thomas over here, but it is driving me back somewhat. Dancers of Yem are heading this way to meet this block here at the moment. There's a so-so charge here. But what I'm hoping is Thomas will be tempted into making the charge against this Medusa, because if he fails it, the Dancers of Yema will flank him. But we'll see whether he takes the bait or not later. And of course, the Heath Hunters could go after the Medusa, but to be fair, she'd rip them apart. So I don't anticipate that happening. And then, yeah, just sort of edging up in the middle a little bit here. I don't want to come surging forwards, because then Thomas will get the charge on me, so we're sort of standing off against one another a little bit at the moment. The Dark Raider is right on the board edge here. He didn't quite run off, but if he'd have gone 1 more inch, he would have done, as he failed to rally. So that was the end of my movement 1. Okay, so end of my turn 1 here then. And the Thicket Beasts down here took a total of 4 wounds from Alchemical Fire, which I've cast through the familiar who had placed there and forgotten to remove at the end of the turn. Apologies for that. But they took 4 wounds total from Alchemical Fire and Molten Copper. But I didn't have anywhere to put the aspects, nothing close enough. And then the Dark Raiders and the Chariots between them did 2 wounds on the Totemic Beast. I was hoping for 3. I was thinking, you know, if the Raiders get 1, that the Chariots might get 2 between them. They're hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, D3 wounds. I think no saves on the Beast. I thought that was, you know, reasonably likely. But anyway, 1 Chariot hit and it did a single wound. So the Totemic Beast is still alive. But if he does run into me, I've got 6 attacks with my paired weapon. So I'm hoping to be able to drop him as he comes in. But we will see. Yeah. That's about that for now. That's the end of my turn 1. Okay, so on to Thomas's movement 2 here then, and you can see that he's elected to come in this gap here and hunt off the last Dark Raider while march blocking the Medusas. He hasn't declared any charges, but he's moved on to the secondary objective here to pick it up. Which is smart play. He doesn't want to be getting up here, because then he'll get charged by the dancers. So bit of a face-off there. He's moved his, what are they called? Thicket Beasts up here. Now this is an obvious bait, because when I charge him, he's going to flee. But that's what they're there for. And then of course he'd get a counter charge with the Dryads and the Giant and the other Thicket Beasts and even the Kestrel Riders as well. So yeah, there you go. Just sort of trying to ensnare me and lay a trap here a little bit. That's the end of Thomas's movement 2. Okay, end of Thomas's turn 2 here then. I actually used my binding scroll in this turn and prevented him from casting the Totemic Beast. But he got the stars align on the Thicket Beasts, making them a bit more durable. And then he also got Swarm of Insects off on this Medusa here and did 2 wounds, but he needed 3 to get rid of it. Annoyingly, my 6 Corsair attacks that were hitting on 2s, wounding on 6s, didn't manage to get that 1 wound on the Totemic Beast, which means I'm still in combat with it, which is going to prevent me from casting certain spells. But I have at least been able to reform to face it, so without my Oracle being in combat, so that's something. Amusingly, the Heath Hunters here all shot at the Dark Raider and all either missed or failed to wound, or his what was a 6+ armor save saved him, so that's quite entertaining up there. So that's the end of Thomas's turn 2. Okay, on to my movement 2 then. There was a single charge with the Dancers of Yema who needed a 9, but unfortunately they got an 8, so a failed charge there. But my Blades of Narb have sort of engaged with this issue in the middle on their own terms. I've come up forwards here. I would obviously prefer the charge because I want the chariot impact hits, but what I really don't want to do is to be taking on a fight on all fronts. So I've got as close to the impassable terrain as I can here. To take on the giant and the thicket beasts. If the thicket beasts were to subsequently flee, then that would put them in a real pickle because I'd be much closer to them. So I'm trying to kind of spring the trap here, and I've got the Medusa chaffing up this block here so that the Dryads can't get a supporting charge, which means there are just a couple of long charges here. And of course, if Thomas were to fail these, then that would be a serious problem for him. And they are kind of iffy, risky charges. Cold One's coming up here. I don't think Thomas will charge this way. I think he will go that way, but if he does, I'm fairly sure they could withstand the assault for 1 turn. They've got a 2-up armor save, and I'm planning to drop Word of Iron on them to make it a 1-up as well. And then if they did hold, then the chariot could come in this way. This chariot's backed off a little bit. Don't want to invite a bunny hop over here. And if Thomas does decide to go after these Dark Raiders with a charge, that's perfect because he'd bounce off the impossible terrain and then I could come at him with either of these units. Chariots over here backing up this unit here, going to try and put in a few harpoon shots on the giant, try and soften him up a little bit. Dark Raiders rallied. Medusa here forcing the issue with this unit. If they stay and shoot again, she charges them in the rear. And then this Medusa here getting ready for any more totemic beasts that might decide to pop up. So that's the end of my movement 2. Okay, so on to my turn 2 here then. And it's been a really bad turn 2. I have cast Word of Iron on my Dread Knights here with 4 dice and rolled a 666 on my Oracle, who has then promptly gone and blown her own head off by rolling 4 pluses on every single one of the dice. So I've lost my general and my spellcaster here in turn 2. So that's a massive, massive blow. And then the chariots have also caused a couple of wounds on the giant here. There was no combat, so it was quite a quick turn 2. I think what this is telling me, this is an experimental game, as I mentioned at the start. I think this is telling me I need some sort of save on her, just as an insurance policy against that. Maybe the token of shielding, maybe not going all the way for Call of Destiny and light armor. But anyway, we'll see. I think she needs something. I think that's what it's telling me. So that's the end of my turn 2. Okay, so we're on to Thomas's turn 3 here then. And the most important thing here is that the Kestrel Knights failed their long charge here. They needed a swift striding 9, and they did actually get 2 goes at it as well. But these things can happen, and I do think it goes to show that you can meticulously plan your movement as much as you like, but at the end of the day, it is a dice game. So yeah, there is that. So anyway, the giants and the thicket beasts have gone into combat with the unit here, hoping for Kestrel support, which they're obviously now not going to have. Thomas has charged off the chaff here, which of course is what he's got to do, and he's obviously committed here to getting rid of the Dark Raiders at the expense of getting charged in the rear by the Medusa over here. The Kestrel Knights having failed their charge, Thomas has reformed here, obviously in anticipation of my charge on their flank, which would cause them to flee. So he's kind of put up a wall here for them to kind of flee behind, really. So yeah, there you go. That's the end of Thomas's movement turn 3. Okay, and you can see here that not having enjoyed my turn 2 particularly, I've had a very enjoyable Thomas's turn 3. Thomas got the Stars Align and Awaken the Beast off on the Thicket Beasts, but it wasn't enough. The Blades of Narb here dropped the Giant with their re-rollable poison and +1 to wound, and did a bit of damage to the Thicket Beasts in the process as well. So they broke, but were not caught. The Dryads beat the Medusa, obviously, and have reformed here so that if I pursue, charge rather in my turn, the Thicket Beasts, then they'll be able to flank charge, is what Thomas is thinking there. Up here, Thomas has also shot off the Dark Raider, so he's achieved his goal there. There you go. That was the end of Thomas's turn 3. Okay, so my movement 3 then, and you can see that I've just made two charges. I've charged at the Kestrel Knights who have fled here, and I've redirected into the Thicket Beasts here, which is, to be expected, I think, really. And I've charged the Heath Riders up here in the back with the Medusa, so they're in a fair bit of trouble. You may have noticed in Thomas's turn, he kind of came into this space up here in the last turn. I hadn't expected him to do that, to be honest. I thought he would kind of back off a little bit, but he's come here anyway, so I've kind of cleared the arc of vision for anything but really long charges, and I've positioned Chariots and Medusas so that I can get a multi-charge here should he choose to come into this space. And then I've got the Dancers of Yema, kind of glaring him down should he decide to stay where he is, and kind of a good arc of vision over here. So what I'm trying to do is drive Thomas back in this direction. He is, of course, carrying this marker. We just didn't bother fiddling with the terrain. So there is a marker in this unit, but that's what's going on up there. Over here, I decided to let the Thicket Beasts run. I can pick them up and sort them out later. It's far more important that I pick up this secondary objective here, because right now Thomas has one and I don't. So I've reformed and backed up a little bit to pick up that marker, because these Dryads can't be charging me because of the direction that they're facing. So what I'm kind of hoping here is that Thomas will reform, and then I'll be able to charge him. It's kind of the idea. Corsairs around the back here, heading towards this secondary objective. Don't know whether they'll make it or not. It is only turn 3 right now, though. Yeah, that's about your lot, really. Okay, so this is the end of my turn 3 then. The Medusa promptly dispatched all of the Heath Riders. She was absolutely on fire. Every roll hit, every roll wounded. And they are strength 5 AP too, so that was the end of them. And then the Raptor Riders beat the Thicket Beasts, but they only had 5 models in there, so as soon as they lost one, the Thicket Beasts were going to be steadfast. I think that also gives me another kind of piece of information for my experimental game here. I need to add 2, maybe 3 models to this unit. But anyway, they won combat, but the Thicket Beasts held. So that was the end of my turn 3. Okay, so we're into Thomas's movement 4 here then. He's not declared any charges, but his Kestrel Riders have failed their leadership test on a 9, remarkably, but their BSB is miles away, so these things can happen. So they've continued to flee. And I think that, this mishap over here with the Kestrel Riders has sort of informed Thomas's thought process, because what he's actually done now is come to sort of face down these chariots with his light cavalry. Now, The chieftain here is I mean, he's big and scary. He's you know, 5 or 6 or even 7 maybe attacks at strength 7, AP 2 or 3. So he dishes out quite a bit of punishment, but I do think it's a risky strategy because there are 3 chariots here. 2 of them are fairly light chariots, to be fair, but if this raptor chariot gets in this way, it'll hurt, or it should hurt, although he will have to take a dangerous terrain. But anyway, so Thomas is being quite direct there, I think, really. Reforming with the dryads here in the forest, that's good elven practice again. Hold the forests. I think that makes him steadfast, I think, or there is some benefit to it anyway. And the thicket beasts over here have rallied. So there you go. That is Thomas's turn 4. Or rather, I should say, the end of Thomas's movement 4. So this is the end of Thomas's turn 4. Beg your pardon, everybody. And it's been an interesting turn 4, to say the least. In the magic phase, Thomas kind of threw caution to the wind a little bit. And breached the veil. He was on flux card 1. He threw 5 dice into one of his spells. I don't recall which, but he rolled a 666 and +1 because it was flux card 1. So the worst possible miscast result. And now Thomas has lost his spellcaster in general. So that was unlikely. And then the thicket beasts, 3 of them, combined 10 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s with 4+ armor saves for me, or 3+ armor saves for me. Anyway, did 0 wounds. My Dread Knights also did 0 wounds and won the combat by virtue of the fact that they had a banner and the thicket beasts didn't. The thicket beasts then rolled a discipline test and rolled an 11 and fled and were caught. So an absolutely bonkers turn 4 for Thomas, where the thicket beast lost combat and shouldn't have, and the general spellcaster disappeared and shouldn't have. Although I think Thomas should have probably been a bit more cautious. I think again the failure of the Kestrel Knights is kind of informing his thought process a little bit too much here. But there you go. Wow, what a turn 4. When I thought my game was over, Thomas really had me at the end of turn 2, and with the death of my general, I thought this is going to be an absolute whitewashing, and now it's completely swung the other way. So, yeah, end of Thomas's turn 4. Okay, so this is my movement 4 then, and you can see that the 3 chariots all did make the charge on this unit. Thomas elected not to flee, because of course he would have been in danger of fleeing off the board with his swift stride roll here. Yeah, I'm not sure of the wisdom of Thomas having previously come into this space. I think if I'd have been him, I'd have played it quite cautiously and gone around the back. But anyway, so triple chariot charge there, although 2 of them are quite light chariots, and the dance is getting ready. Because there are no ranks here, of course. So if 1 rank survives, Thomas will be steadfast. So the dancer's getting ready to come in the subsequent turn. The blades rather here have elected to charge at the dryads, get my impact hits. Some dangerous terrains coming up here because this is a Sylvan Elf forest, but this unit has got to do its damage. It's got to earn its points, so in it goes. Raiders trying to get a couple of pop shots off on the thicket beasts here. 1 is down to 1 wound, so if I can get a wound there, that's a bonus. I charged at the Kestrel Knights over here, I should have mentioned, with the 2 remaining Dread Knights, and they fled off the board. So there goes Thomas's other spellcaster as well, so there's no magic left in this game now. And then Chariot kind of coming around the side here, hoping to make himself useful later on. And Corsairs heading towards a secondary objective. So yeah, what a swing. The Medusa here did actually declare a charge this way, but failed. So that's it. That's my movement 4. Okay, so this is the end of my turn 4 then. There was, of course, no magic, and the shooting didn't do anything. So we went straight into combat, and I was thinking, right, we've got him here. Triple chariot charge, 3d6 impact hit, strength 5, yes please. Triple 1. So, yeah, only a couple of wounds from all 3 chariots impact hits. That was extremely frustrating, so this unit held in the end. But the blades over here and the dryads did a huge amount of damage to each other. The dryads broke just by I think they lost combat by a 2 or 3 in the end. It was like an absolute bloodfest over here, and the one remaining blade and the divine altar with the cult priest pursued, and then the one remaining blade actually died from dangerous terrain, and in so doing dropped his secondary objective. And then the dryads managed to outrun them anyway. So that was frustrating. What an interesting game this one is. Right, that's the end of my turn 4. Okay, so this is the end of Thomas's movement 5 then. It looks like his dryads didn't rally, but they did. We just didn't bother turning the tray around. We just agreed that they were facing the divine altar. And the thicket beasts have come into the forest here in a hope of getting a rear charge perhaps later on, or a flank charge, and scoring some points over here. Yeah, not a lot else left on the board at this point. So that's the end of Thomas's movement 5. Okay, so this is the end of Thomas's turn 5, and you can see in the combat up here that the elves have actually won, which just goes to show really how beefy this chieftain on Great Elk is, with his strength 7 and all his gazillion attacks. This chariot here, apologies, is actually dead, and I neglected to move it. I was clearing it out of the way for counting combat score, and I neglected to remove it, but just ignore that, that's there. So this chariot had fled, but fortunately this one chariot here held, the raptor chariot here held, and the Medusa and the other chariot had been killed. So thankful that is the case, though, because now the dancers of Yema can get into combat with this chieftain, because they've got great weapons. So yeah, some potential there, and Thomas will, of course, in his next turn, be able to pick up the secondary objective here. So it's important that I take this unit out and claim the secondary objective that it's presently carrying. So there you go. That is the end of Thomas's turn 5. Okay, my movement 5 here then. And I charged at the dryads, who elected to flee. I think what Thomas was trying to do there was put as much distance between his thicket beasts and my divine altar as possible. So he fled there so that the divine altar had to go and give chase to the dryads, and it caught them, but it caught them all the way over here. So there is a good long distance on this now for later on. And then the dancers have got into combat over here. The Corsairs have come around to here, but I'm a bit frustrated here, because that means they're not going to be on top of it until turn 6, and of course they can't pick it up until the start of the subsequent turn. So although they will get to it, they won't be able to pick it up. So that's annoying. So that just means that just puts all the more importance on taking this secondary objective up here. Yeah, other than that, we've got the what's left of the Dread Knights getting ready for a flank here, and the Raptor Chariot and the Medusa coming down for a flank here. So yeah, hoping for the final blow here really. So that's the end of my movement 5. Okay, so this is the end of my turn 5 here then, and you can see the dancers of Yema have taken out the chieftain and the Heath Rider, and then overran so that they're on top of this marker to pick it up in turn 6. And that's it for turn 5, a very brief turn 5. Okay, so this is the end of Thomas's movement 6, but since there's no combat and no shooting, it's also the end of his turn 6, and what he's done basically is just back up a little bit. He doesn't expect a rear charge from these Dark Raiders, because that would be giving him easy points. So he's just putting a little bit more distance between himself and the chariot here. So, yeah, can I get him? That's the end of Thomas's turn 6. Okay, and into my movement 6 here then, and you can see the chariot did make it. It was a swift striding 10, but he did make it. So in the chariot goes, and didn't even take any damage from the dangerous terrain along the way either. So a chariot, couple of knights, and another chariot here. I think these thicket beasts are in trouble. So that's the end of my 6 movement. Okay, and that's the end of turn 6 there, and you can see that the thicket beasts did take out the dread knights. They took them down with them, but the impact hits from the chariots weakened them, and yeah, they were able to sort of finish the thicket beasts off. So with no models left on the Sylvan Elves side, bizarrely that's a 20-0, although it certainly didn't feel like a 20-0. This was an absolutely bonkers game. The Kestrel Knights failing their charge along the side here was the defining moment, I think, because that enabled the blades and the chariots to kind of go on a rampage down here. Up to that point, I think Thomas was really on the front foot and had me on the ropes a lot. But so many absolutely mad things in this game. 2 wizards blowing their own heads off. I mean, when does that ever happen? And then the triple 1 on the chariot impact hits up here as well. Absolutely bonkers game. But I think that the pivotal moment in it was the failed charge of these Kestrel Knights. Up to that point, it was all going Thomas's way, and it just goes to show you can meticulously plan your movement phase and set everything up, but one bad dice roll and it can all suddenly change. So yeah, I suppose that's why we love this game, isn't it? Right, so a very, very fortunate 20-0 there. Yeah, certainly didn't feel like it was going to be a 20-0. Commiserations to Thomas. He played an excellent game. I don't think he deserves that at all. But that is the nature of dice games, I suppose. Right, thank you everybody. I hope you enjoyed that. If you haven't liked or subscribed yet, then please do so. And I will see you next time.